it's recorded.
Correct. And you're aware that, and further, you're aware that, I'm letting 10,000 other people listen to us as we talk.
But if you called someone from your program and talked to them, could you record it?
That's the interesting question. The answer is not without their consent. So I would have to, which makes it tough in this state, because that's not every state. A lot of states, I could literally dial you up and be like, hey, we're live on the air. Let's go, and then you'd be like, whoa, caught off your guard. You know what I mean?
Now, are you saying if you're in Pennsylvania and you do that with a state that you can record?
Oh, no, you can't do it from you as a Pennsylvanian in Pennsylvania can't do it. What's weird is people out of state can do it to you, though, right? Because they're not they're in their state doing what they want to do.
Oh, see, you clarified everything.
Now, here's the answer, too. The government can record a telephone call if one of the parties consents, okay?
Oh.
But there has to be a consensualization and certain procedures followed. And answering machines and voicemails can record you because you're aware, beep, please leave a message.
Yeah.
Well, you've just consented to being recorded because you recognize that you are being recorded.
Well, thank you, Carl. That clarifies everything.
All right, you take care.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, 540-0580. Get your legal questions answered. Who's next? Kelly.
Hi, Carl.
Hey.
My question is, I have custody of my grandson. I was given custody through Children and Youth Courts,
okay,
and we've had him since December. What I'd like to know is, we want to adopt him. My daughter's not willing to, just say, okay. Obviously we need to come in and talk to a lawyer. Is that going to be an easy type thing, or?
Well, is that... we're doing a couple adoptions right now that come to mind, and I can tell you, one, the father basically was unopposed, and another, I think the father's going to consent, meaning in the one basically was, wasn't exactly agreeing, but wasn't making any real opposition. Sometimes when people don't consent, but they don't oppose, it's fairly simple. If they want to show up in court, and I actually represented a guy in state prison one time who wanted to prevent the termination of his parental rights. And we were successful. I actually convinced some crazy judge not to terminate his parental rights, even though he was going to be getting out of jail for a bunch of years. And there's some nice stepdad that wanted to adopt the kid.
Yeah.
And of course, my secretaries are like, "You're an evil, bad man." And I'm like, "Well, that's what I was hired to do." And by the way, I'm paying you with that money. I'm earmarking it for you guys.
Right.
But nonetheless, my point is, can she oppose it? Yes. But there's a legal standard, and the legal standard involves fitness, and it involves care and their ability to care for the child. And the fact that Children and Youth had to get involved at some point usually gives us some glimmer of hope that it won't be that difficult. But
she's homeless, and there's all different horrible things behind it.
Yeah, and so what we would do, quite frankly, is sit down with you and just kind of go through the exact facts, which are obviously things we're not going to vet here on the air. And then give you our odds. But the short answer is you never know.
Okay.
Because the law does favor the concept that a parent and a child have a certain bond and a certain right to be together. It has to be weighed against the best interests of the children. And so if there is some desire on her part to be a parent, sometimes that can happen. The other thing is, though, and this is what we sometimes counsel, because I've represented people who are in your daughter's position. I've counseled them, why don't you let the grandparent adopt? Because you got to get your house in order. You're so far out there right now. But more importantly, if this kid ends up in the system or somehow ends up out there, in the wide world.
That's not going to happen because we're not letting him go.
Right, I understand that. But I say, if that were to happen, something happens to you tomorrow or something, I don't know.
Right.
It's better nonetheless that it's a grandparent, because if you're going to have meaningful contact, that's they're much more likely to let you back into that kid's life or keep you in that kid's life than a foster family or stranger is going to.
Correct. Yeah.
So, come see me. I'd be happy to help you. Rob Cunling in my office does adoptions on a regular basis. So.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh boy, let's see here. Shane, I got enough time to take another caller, don't I? Before I have to go. Oh, yeah, he's nodding his head. Fred, you're on WHP 580.
Yes, sir, Carl. I've been renting to a couple for over a year now.
Okay.
And I come to find out there's another family living with them.
Always interesting. Well, you can do a couple of things. One is you can go to them and say, "What's going on?
Yeah.
You know, I like you as tenants, and you've been doing a good job, and you're paying your rent, and I hate to evict somebody because of something silly like letting somebody come and stay."
I already said that, but go ahead.
And if they say, "Well, you know, we need them to help pay the rent,"
Yeah.
next question is, are they damaging the place, or are they over capacity? I mean, what are we talking about? Sardines in a can here?
It's over capacity, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, you know, you might go to them and say, "Listen, I just can't in good conscience let you stay with this many people here, so I'm going to have to evict you."
Yeah. Just evict a person with the lease, and the other two will go, I guess, huh?
Well, yeah, except that I'd probably get their names, and, you know, if I was going to be real coy about it, I'd go to them and be like, "Listen, I need to know who else is here. I need
who's there.
I need information on them," and then you file against everybody, because unfortunately now that they're in the door, you get the eviction order for the other people. The constable shows up and says, "Well, I've got an eviction order and possession against, you know, Bill and Mary, but I don't have anything against Ted and Susan here." And Ted and Susan are like, "Well, you can't kick us out because the order doesn't have us on it."
Yeah, but they never had a lease or nothing.
Well, I understand that.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's this thing out there called squatters' rights, which isn't technically what we have here. But the idea is, and I'll give you an example. I've had this happen.
Yeah.
Mister, I just need a place to stay, and I'm going to sign the lease, and I can be there tomorrow to sign the lease and pay you the first rent check.
Right.
And you're like, "Well, I'll tell you what, I'll put the key under the mat, and I'll come get it, and I'll come sign it in the morning." Once that happens, if that guy doesn't sign that lease or give you the first rent check, you still have to evict him.
Yep.
So that's my point. Once their foot's literally in the door, like that old sleazy insurance salesman, you can't, you know, that goes door to door back in the old days. Once his foot in the door, you ain't getting rid of him without a fight.
Yeah, been there, done that. Yeah. I heard, Bob Durgan was on Friday night. Did you have anything to do with that?
No.
He was really saying how bad it is for the landlords.
Oh, yeah.
They have no rights and what have you. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Landlord has rights, but unfortunately, they're very tempered.
Oh, yes. Yes, I know what you're saying there.
All right, Fred, I got to go to break.
Okay.
Where you from, Fred?
Right, bye-bye.
Hey, Fred. Ah, well. I was going to give Fred a free gift certificate, but I guess I got one more to give away now. 540-0580. See you after the break. Hey, welcome back. Carl Rominger here. Hey, Paul Chase, my buddy down in Lancaster, who practices around the mid-state. He's a realtor who does a lot of short sales, foreclosure-type work for people who are underwater on their mortgage or facing potential foreclosures or even are in bankruptcy, but still want to get rid of the property in the above-board manner of selling it if possible. Sent me some statistics from Realty Track that there were only 44 new filings last month in, I guess that's April, for foreclosures, but there was a record in March of 271 foreclosures for Dauphin County. Cumberland County at the same period had 81 new foreclosures in April, most in Mechanicsburg, Carlisle, Camp Hill, and Enola. Lancaster County had 100 new filings last month. Most of them were in Lancaster, with Lidditz, Columbia, Effort, and Elizabethtown rounding out the top five. And York County had a whopping 237 foreclosures filed, most of them in and around York City. So foreclosures are still happening left and right. People are having a lot of trouble with those mortgages. If you're a little behind, a lot behind, you want to figure out what to do, contact Paul. He works with Caldwell Banker Select Professionals down in Lancaster. But like I say, he travels around the mid-state, and I know him from hanging out with him in the Camp Hill area. So 735-8400, you can get hold of Paul, or just shoot me an email, and I'll hook you guys up. But if you're interested in unloading a house, or you're behind and you want a little help or figure out what your options are, and don't, you know, it's a no-brainer. I mean, he's not going to force you to do anything. Just talk with him if you want to keep it and you just want to have a backup plan. He's a good guy to talk to. So talk to Paul Chase, 735-8400. And let's see who's next. Linda, you're on the air.
Hello, Carl. Thanks for your great show.
Thank you.
When people call in and ask if they need a lawyer, it makes me think of two situations that I knew about. One was my neighbor got a minor charge and had to go before the district judge. And she even had a friend who was a lawyer who said he'd go with her, but she's like, nah, I'm innocent. And she said till she got done, she got drug over the coals, and the whole time she was thinking, I wish I had a lawyer here beside me. And then one time our family needed a lawyer. We got a name of a good one, and although it was painful to write out the check, it was, I think, some of the best money we ever spent. So people should really consider it if they're facing a difficult situation.
I really appreciate that. And obviously, again, I'm a little biased, but, I just went over and I got my car inspected by Sam and Jerry's Garage in Carlisle. They do a really good job, and I like those guys over there. And, I go over there, and he's explaining to me, well, it's going to cost, this is what it's going to cost, this is what you need. And I'm like, just, you're the expert. You do what you need to do to make sure my car doesn't fail or blow up or the brakes go out, because I'm not the right guy to do that. And that's kind of how I approach things. And sometimes I get a little miffed when I have somebody that comes in to see me and even pays me and then doesn't follow my advice.
Right, that's important.
But nonetheless, I'm like, you did what? Didn't we talk about this? And I mean, and the funny part is that usually makes me more money in the long run. Rarely does following my advice make me less money.
Yeah.
Or I should say, not following my advice make me less money. And I always joke, too, the other thing is most people, and this is the same, I'm sure doctors, and of course you don't want to joke about this, but I'm sure a lot of doctors will say the same thing, which is, people come in with their leg literally falling off, and you go, okay, well, if you'd have come here when this first happened, I could have patched you up, and it would have been a very simple procedure and 99.9% successful. But since you chose to, in my world, sign the contract that you didn't have anybody read, and then go ahead and start, quote, litigating this contract dispute 2 years later on your own, you're now in a position where your discovery's overdue. It's a contract you never should have signed. And a buddy of mine just did that. He and I were in court, and I was like, did you actually sign this thing? And he looks at me and he says, I didn't actually read it. And I said, you didn't read it, did you? Because if you'd have read it, I know you're a smart guy, and I know if you'd have read it. And he said, I just figured it was a standard contract. Anyhow, okay, I can go on and on like that. But no, Linda, I think you're absolutely on the mark there.
Very good. Thanks again for a great show.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. And the boy I'm talking about, if he's listening, he's going to be laughing too, because he knows he should have read it. He didn't even need me to read it. It was one a contract that was so obviously lopsided. But that's the problem with the fine print, man. They make it really small, and then Shane's nodding his head over there. Shane's like, I don't read 18 paragraphs of fine print. I figure whatever it says, it says. Yeah, right. Exactly. Liz, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hi. I was calling. We have a major flooding issue in our neighborhood.
Right.
And it's actually 3 neighborhoods really close together. And what happens is if we get heavy rain in a short period of time, we have like drains in the street and sewer systems that are supposed to collect the rain and take it somewhere.
Okay.
It's not doing its job, basically. The drains are totally backing up, and then what happens is it starts to flood the street, and it floods our front yard. I mean, it happens not just to us, but our neighbors, too.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates a problem because it blocks the road. It's dangerous. It's causing sinkholes. It's flooding people's basements. Like, I know myself and my neighbor, we don't get water in our basement unless our front yards are flooded.
Okay.
Regular rain, it can rain for 3 days straight, and we have no water. But if it rains heavy and it floods the front yard, we have water. And, we've talked to the township. It's been happening for about 4 or 5 years. And numerous people have complained to the township. And the township has told, the township manager actually sent me an email in 2009 and told me that they were doing a study on how to fix this problem. And so my main question is, I'm thinking you should be beyond the study phase
right.
by now. Is there, any point to any kind of litigation or any kind of, class action thing that could make them move faster?
Well, the short answer is, if you'd hired me, let me tell you what I would do. First thing I'd do is get hold of the township, talk to the solicitor, maybe talk with the engineers over there, and find out where they're realistically at and what's going on. If there's answers are satisfactory, then we stand down. If the answers aren't satisfactory, we have to analyze the legal issues. A township can be sued, and things can be forced upon them in certain circumstances. However, Pennsylvania recognizes a doctrine called the common enemy doctrine, and water is considered to be the common enemy of the people. meaning